Hello, hello, Liberation Hour. Welcome back to the show. This is your host, Comrade Felicity, coming at you pre-recorded. Or am I? Yes, folks. Or yes, I am in the studio live, folks. Yes, I have made it. It has been too long, but I'm here. I'm queer, and I'm back live in the studio. I'm so happy to be back. I was taking a break from coming in because I was in the throes of the semester. But as you can probably see, things have gotten a little bit better. I'm currently finishing up my senior year, so I will be graduating in May. Yay, thank God, get me out of here. But yeah, I'm super excited, and I'm super happy to be back in the studio with y'all today. As you can see, I have two mics. It's because I am both recording live on the radio, but I'm also recording on my podcast recorder so that I can upload the audio. So that's what's going on. But yes, folks, I'm so happy to be back in the studio. It's been way too long. I gotcha. April Fools. Yes, that was an April Fool's. That was an attempt at an April Fool's joke. I don't know if it was successful, but it was an attempt. But yeah, I'm so happy to be back. So let's go ahead and do the top of the hour disclaimer and get started. WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign online community. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not meant to represent WRFU, UCIMC. Folks, welcome back. We have a lot to talk about today. So as you probably know, there's like a whole war happening, and there's just a lot. But I'm going to be covering two stories today that I think are probably some of the most important that we need to be discussing. Obviously, I think that what's going on in Iran is incredibly important, but part of the reason that I'm kind of choosing not to cover it as much is because it's everywhere right now. Everyone's seeing stuff about it. I don't really know how much I can really add to that conversation. So, we're just going to kind of keep waiting and seeing how things play out. Continue to stay critical and continue to get a wide breadth of knowledge on the situation. Don't silo yourself into one news source or another. Obviously proletarian news is the best news that you can get. Corporate media is always going to be in some way, shape, or form lying to you. But it is important to ensure that we are getting a wide breadth of information and knowledge. And so, is that a bug? There's a whole bug in here. I can't tell if that's a ladybug. Okay, I'm getting distracted. But yeah, so that's part of the reason why I haven't been covering Iran as much. I feel like we need to continue to wait and see what's happening and just allow events to unfold and play out before I give a full analysis on the situation. I do know, just to kind of give a little bit of where I'm at knowledge-wise, and perhaps people can drop some links in the comment section of the YouTube video that will come out tomorrow of this recording session. Some possible news outlets that I could look at. But currently what I understand is happening is the U.S. and Israel are not actually winning this war as they so ferociously continue to push that they are, clearly. There's been a lot of updates around the UN. I believe there was just a UN ambassador that has... he resigned because there was talk of dropping a nuke on Iran. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how much we can trust that. We don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I should say I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But I'm going to continue to stay skeptical until I see hard evidence of the fact. We always must remember that imperialist powers and the bourgeois class will do anything to maintain themselves. If that means dropping a nuke on Iran, then that's what they're going to do. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. As proletarians, as revolutionary socialists, we need to ensure that our first priority is helping the working class, organizing around the working class issues, and, all of the above, as I have stated multiple times on this show. As it relates to the possibility of a nuke being dropped on Iran, I really hope not. I would prefer not. That would be so incredibly terrible and destructive and genocidal. But again, it wouldn't be a surprise, and we need to continue to stay vigilant and organize and agitate against something like that happening. And that means here in the West, holding our governments accountable, being as forthright as possible with our, maintaining the fact that we do not believe in this war. That this is a bourgeois war and that we need to stand against it. And so, that's currently where I stand on it. Oh God, this is continuing. I mean, the people who are ultimately suffering are, the Iranian people. The people of West Asia are currently are in a situation that just doesn't have to exist. But it does, because this is imperialism. This is how it works, and this is how it will always work until we do something really revolutionary to, completely destroy class society. And this is the only way. This is how we win. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move into my news segments for the night. I have two stories that I want to cover. One of them is from Labor Notes. I have been using a lot of their sourcing recently just because I love it so much. I think it's been really great. And another is a PBS article about aid that has been going to Cuba. I think that it's been really, really amazing to see so many content creators, so many activists, so many people going to support Cuba during this time of crisis. I know that Russia and China have also been sending aid. I'm glad to see that Cuba is getting the aid that it requires and that it needs to maintain itself. I couldn't be happier about that. And, just ensuring that they have their resources is the most important part here. This is after all a humanitarian crisis, no matter what. And so we need to ensure that the Cuban people are taken care of first. And so I'm really happy to see that so many people are showing up for Cuba. But to begin, let's go ahead and look. Oh, I was about to knock over the trash can. Oopsie. Let's go ahead and go to this article from Labor Notes. So, oh gosh. Okay. So we've got, it's not too long actually. This is a pretty good article. So it's overwhelmed by strike. San Francisco schools found the money for top union demands. Oh, look at that. It's almost like when we organize around around working class issues, and we, pressure governments and institutional bodies to meet our demands. It's almost like it works and it happens. It's almost like they actually do have the money and the resources for it, and they just don't want to allocate those because, they're capitalists. Oh, wow. So revolutionary, but still so incredibly important to report on. And so thank you to Danielle Smith for reporting on this. Just came out yesterday, March 31st. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, 6,000 San Francisco educators won fully funded healthcare, sanctuary schools, and up to 8.5% and up to an 8.5% raise over 2 years by walking out for the first time in nearly 50 years. After just 4 days on strike, February 9th to February 12th, they won their top demands, some of which the district had previously refused even to bargain over. Quote, "It was hard and it was joyful, and we effing beat them," said Ilian Desay-Geller. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm so sorry. A high school teacher who served on the bargaining committee and as a regional strike captain. They found the money all of a sudden. All of a sudden, whoa! It's almost like they had it and they just didn't want to allocate it. Man. Quote, "They found the money for the things that they said they couldn't. They agreed to the language they said they couldn't. Workers in classified roles, such as paraeducators, will get a raise of 8.5% over the 2 years of the contract. Workers in certified roles, such as teachers, will get 5%. Next up will be Los Angeles, where 35,000 educators are poised to strike on April 14th, along with 30,000 members of SEIU Local 99, such as cafeteria workers, custodians, bus drivers, and special ed assistants. In San Francisco, other union workers, including principals, custodians, and lunchroom staff, joined educators on the picket line in a sympathy strike. United Teachers Los Angeles and United Educators of San Francisco are part of the We Can't Wait, a statewide campaign by more than 30 California Teachers Association locals, with a shared platform calling for smaller class sizes, more resources for schools instead of layoffs, and competitive wages and benefits to address the thousands of vacancies in California's public schools. The locals also agreed to escalate along a common timeline. Across the bay from San Francisco, Richmond Teachers United also struck this year for the first time ever and won 8% raises over 2 years. Two locals in the Sacramento area also struck. One of them, Twin Rivers Educators United, stayed out for 12 days and won 7% raises over 2 years. Apparently, according to this article, this was years in the making. The San Francisco strike success was 5 years in the making as the union worked to develop an elected committee at each school. The committee focused on problems within the school, but also kept in touch with the larger union. There were meetings bringing together all of the elementary school committees, for instance, and all of the middle and high school committees, and a citywide general assembly. Activists from different schools got to know each other and saw what issues they had in common. Quote, once we start getting more sites with union building committees, then there is more conversations happening at each site. There's more information getting shared with each member, said Alana Merchant, who teaches 6th and 7th grade science. I feel like that was how all of this started. From these building committees came many of the strike captains and 120 members of the bargaining committee. Merchant was among them. Para-educator Faith Avalos said that building to a strike took a lot of conversations with her coworkers, asking questions like, how do you feel about the district right now? Quote, it was issue-based, but a lot of it was just, how do you feel supported at your job by the district? Do you feel they could have done a better job? Sorry about that, said Avalos, who would become a strike captain. Schools held their own strike votes and practice pickets. The union asked rank and filers who were organizing their own schools to go help out other work sites too. Merchant said, and this developed into a network of regional strike captains like her who helped support the strike captains. Gotta turn on my volume. I am way too loud. Okay, there we go. Outside the bargaining room. The strikers picketed at schools in the mornings, then gathered for large community actions in the afternoons. Strike captains were responsible for turning out members to picket and keeping track of participation. Each picket also had an attendance person, a communications person, and chant leaders. Everyone had a role. At Avalos's middle school in northern San Francisco, art teachers made custom banners and painted the sidewalks. Two workers made custom signs with a picture of Superintendent Maria Sue crying that said, "Boo Sue." Damn, that's crazy. Wow, get her. When middle school students came out to show support, the strikers taught them how to lead chants and walk the picket line, and explained why they were taking action. Quote, middle school students don't do anything unless you tell them they have to do it. But we had a bunch of students show up on their own initiative, Avalos said. Quote, they were the most energetic. They drew hopscotch, but you were jumping on Donald Trump and Elon Musk's face. They made signs that were like, teachers can't survive only on only apples, period. Avalos Middle School was one of the sites where the district chose to send scabs from human resources, so small groups of strikers covered the back entrances. However, the strikers at her school mainly focused on getting support from the community. Out of a staff of about 500, only one person who was non-union crossed the picket line, she said. The afternoon rallies and marches drew up to 15,000 to 20,000 participants, according to the union. One day they marched from a rally in Mission Dolores Park to City Hall. Another day, thousands gathered on the beach to spell out strike and for our students, an impressive turnout given the, quote, schlep to the beach, said bargaining committee member and regional strike captain Michelle Cody. Though the bargaining committee couldn't always attend them, those actions gave them the morale boost they needed to keep going and the leverage to win their demands, said special educator paraprofessional Diana Mueller. Or Mueller. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Another regional strike captain and bargaining committee member. Quote, "We filled the streets. It was incredible," Miller said. And it really is true when you hear folks talk about how what happens outside the bargaining room really has an impact on what happens inside the bargaining room. The last section here is love letter to the city. Even though San Francisco has fewer children and parents than many other cities, the community support for the strike was strong. Local businesses provided free food, coffee, and restrooms. Dezay Geller said he heard from a lot of people that felt like a version of San Francisco they hadn't seen for a long time. He said gentrification and an influx of transplants and AI-related jobs are pushing the working class out of the city to the East Bay. Meanwhile, educators are being told there was no money for public schools. The school district had initially refused to negotiate over union demands that it claimed weren't legally mandatory subjects of bargaining. Sanctuary schools to protect immigrant students and families, and extending an in-school shelter program for students who need housing, according to Dezay Geller. But ultimately, the district agreed to these demands during strike. Cody, who was born and raised in the city, said the strike felt like a, quote, love letter back to San Francisco. She got to lead chants at 2 of the actions and said that, quote, one day longer, one day stronger, became like the soundtrack of the strike. She loved seeing people say, quote, the rain be damned, and fill the streets together singing. Quote, in that moment, it was like everyone believed in what we were doing, she said, because it wasn't just about us. It was about what we could. It was about what this could mean for our city, our government. Everyone could connect with something that we were asking for. Everyone at some point had a teacher, an educator, a social worker, a para, a counselor that has impacted their lives. And that's the end of the article. So I want to say, first and foremost, this is so inspiring. And I think that, we need to take action like this across the country. This is so inspiring to see that so many educators from the Bay Area are standing up and standing strong against organized capital, and I know it's like, well, that's public schools, right? Public schools and administrators who control the funding for public schools are still very much in service of the bourgeois class. We have to remember this. We have to remember that once you pass a certain threshold, when you think about it, like, in comparison, you have, for example, in a regular union, I guess not a regular union, but for like the steel workers union, you have the actual workers who are doing the work and are getting wages. But then you have the people like the managerial class, the people who manage them, who keep them in line. These are two opposing forces who cannot at any point actually work together to find a solution because they have two opposite material outcomes that they're trying to gain here. The workers are wanting more wages. The administrators and the managers are wanting to maintain their power and are essentially representatives of capital. They don't want to give up too much, otherwise they risk being ousted from their own positions. And so, it's important that communities come together around striking workers to ensure that they see that there are people supporting them, because the morale can get low. And so, I just want to say congrats to the teachers unions of the Bay Area. Congrats to the educators unions across California who are taking on this initiative. I'm more than happy to see this. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story of the night. This is about aid vessels arriving in Cuba as economic and energy crises deepen. So this is from PBS. So, just keep in mind, bourgeois media, blah, 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 blah. This was written March 24th, and it is by Andrea Rodriguez from the Associated Press. So again, bourgeois media, keep in mind. But I actually do personally know a couple of people who were on the creators flotilla, who brought aid to Cuba. I have to say, it was so amazing to get to know what it was like. It was really amazing to hear about it. It was amazing to see the photos, and it was probably even more amazing to experience it because these people showed up and showed out for Cuba. I want to shout out Lily Agla, who was on the show just a few episodes ago. Shout out to Lily. She was one of the creators who went to Cuba, amongst others. And they brought supplies, they brought aid, they learned, they were part of the communities. It's so amazing. And in such a dark period as well, because what's happening in Cuba, or to Cuba, is more than criminal. It's straight up genocidal from the United States government to be doing this. And I don't honestly use that word lightly because, there are ways that we define genocide and that we define these things. But I don't know how else we can explain what is happening. In large part because of the fact that, how else can you, what other outcome are you looking for when you're starving an entire country of their resources? What other outcome could there be other than to not only do regime change, but for a lot of people to die in the process? This is, and it's not even honestly for regime change. This is a conquest. This is a conquest headed by Marco Rubio and the capitalists who run our government currently, the fascists who run our government currently. This is a vendetta he's carrying out against his quote unquote own people, because he's a fascist, and he and the American government see Cuba as an imminent threat, not because it's actually a material threat, not because they could actually threaten the United States in any meaningful way, but because their existence as a country that exists outside of the United States' immediate influence as being controlled opposition and basically a vassal state, they stand in stark opposition to that. And the United States government does not like that, and they haven't liked it since it happened, since the revolution happened in 1959. So it's incredibly important to keep that in mind as we look at how the United States is treating the Cuba situation, because of all I just mentioned. It's this is a campaign being carried out against an entire country, millions of people, because they refuse to bow, kiss the ring, bow to the global hegemon, and that's in and of itself. The fact that they have survived for so long, that they have continued to build, that they have some of the best doctors in the world, some of the best educators in the world, some of the best services in the world for their people, and they're kept completely isolated by economic embargoes. That is a feat in and of itself. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get reading. So this is Havana, Associated Press. A ship bringing humanitarian aid to Cuba arrived in Havana on Tuesday, loaded with solar panels, bicycles, food, and medicine as the island's economic and energy crisis deepened. Some 30 people were aboard the first of 3 ships expected to arrive in Cuba as it grapples with severe blackouts, a crumbling power grid, and a U.S. energy blockade. Quote, "This type of economic warfare shouldn't exist. This attitude of a pirate state that doesn't respect international law," activist Thiago Avelia told reporters as he disembarked from the ship, christened Grandma 2.0, an homage to the ship that ferried revolutionary leader Fidel Castro to the island in 1956. These ships are a drop in the ocean of need. At the same time, it's a gesture of solidarity, Avelia said. The ship departed Puerto Progreso and Merida, Mexico last week, and 2 others are heading to Cuba. The help is important for us, quote, the help is important for us so that it can be seen that the revolution is not alone. Antonia Santamaria, a 72-year-old retiree, said as she watched the boat slowly approach the dock. The flotilla is part of a caravan called Our American Convoy to Cuba, with more than 650 participants from 33 countries who arrived on the island last weekend with tons of aid and were received by President Miguel Diaz-Canel. Visitors included British parliamentarian Jeremy Corbyn, Colombian Senator Clara Lopez, Spanish politician Pablo Iglesias, and U.S. labor leader Chris Smalls. The popular Irish hip-hop trio Kneecap also participated. The energy embargo imposed by President Donald Trump in late January to bring pressure for a change in the island's political model has compounded 5 years of profound economic crisis stemming from the paralysis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and previous U.S. sanctions against the Caribbean nation. Cuba is suffering from transportation shortages, reduced working hours, flight cancellations, and above all, blackouts, including 2 island-wide blackouts in recent days. Trump and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, whose parents emigrated from Cuba in the 1950s, have said they were prepared to, quote, take the island. Authorities from both countries acknowledge that they are holding talks, although they have not disclosed details. Okay, I'm just going to interject there for a second. Anytime the United States says that they are holding talks, no, they aren't. No, they aren't. And even if that, they are technically talking to them, and they're meeting diplomats and blah, 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 blah. No, they aren't. No, they aren't. Proof? Iran. We were, quote unquote, in talks with Iran for how long? Before we just started bombing them? Okay, folks, just to be clear, just to be crystal clear, anytime the United States government says that they are, quote unquote, in talks, this goes for both, Republican governments, but also Democrats. That is not true. They are in talks insofar as they are trying to buy themselves time, and so that they can have some kind of element of surprise and many other reasons, so that they can militarily go in and basically take over by force. Let's be so for real right now for a second. Any time that they say, oh yeah, we're in talks, no, they're not. Not seriously. Not seriously. And that should be more than clear to people, especially after this whole Iran debacle. Cuba's Deputy Minister of Energy and Mines, Aurelio Abad Vigo, last week said that the country has gone 3 months without receiving supplies of diesel, fuel oil, gasoline, jet fuel, and liquefied petroleum gas, all of which are vital for the economy and electricity generation. Cuba produces barely 40% of the fuel it needs. Meanwhile, a Hong Kong-flagged vessel that was reportedly carrying 200,000 barrels of diesel from Russia to Cuba has instead docked in Venezuela, according to Marine Traffic, a project that tracks the movement of vessels across the globe using publicly available data. Leaders from several countries and social organizations have warned that Cuba could be on the verge of a humanitarian crisis. Oh, you don't say. You don't say that Cuba could be on the verge of a humanitarian crisis. Girl, they've been on the verge of a humanitarian crisis. This is what happens when you allow a state to go buck wild and slap embargoes and economic sanctions and blah, 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 and all of these things onto another country that has absolutely no recourse to be able to fight that. Hello? Anyway, countries including Mexico, China, Brazil, and Italy, and non-governmental groups from the United States are among those that have sent aid. CARICOM, a Caribbean trade bloc, said Tuesday that it would send aid including powdered milk, medical supplies, and water tanks to Cuba via Mexico, which has agreed to transport the items for free by ship. The international aid is usually distributed free of charge by the state through the network of stores that Cubans use to buy food, except in cases where a donor specifies that a shipment should have a specific destination, such as medicine for hospitals. So that's the end of the article. I feel like that one was pretty straightforward. We're going to be transitioning now into the pre-recorded interview portion, but just as some quick comments on Cuba, I want to say thank you again to the activists who have been doing tireless work to get aid to Cuba. We need to continue to pay attention to how the United States treats Cuba. We need to continue to resist and agitate and organize within your communities to do revolutionary work that can help that can do something to help support the Cuban people and pressure our own governments in whatever way possible to stop this violence. So yeah, apart from that, let's go ahead and transition over to the pre-recorded interview. This was my wonderful discussion with WillzTalks on the UAE and the Gulf states, and he was such a wonderful guest, super smart, super fun to talk to, and we had a wonderful conversation. So without further ado, folks, this is my discussion with WillzTalks. I'll see y'all next week, and have a lovely rest of your night. Bye! Welcome back to the Liberation Hour, everybody. This is your host, Comrade Felicity, and a special guest today, WillzTalks, and we're going to be discussing the UAE. Introduce yourself, Will. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm Will. Go by Will's Talks online. I do a lot of commentary about a lot of different things. I've recently been talking a lot about, anti-imperialism, post-colonialism, and as with the topic of this episode, the UAE and how that fits into this whole entire narrative. This kick kind of started, as for a lot of people it did, following October 7th with the uptick in imperial violence in Palestine. I'm recently a victim of a lot of hate for my take on heated rivalry, but that is not the topic of the show. So it's been an interesting week. And yeah, you can find me on Will's Talks everywhere.
I need to comment on this real fast. I don't disagree with you. I had a curse. Okay, I am not. We need to discuss this really fast. I have never seen heated rivalry, and I will never see it.
You know
I
what? Yeah, go on.
I'm sorry. I know there's the girls who love their yaoi. Good for you. Good for you. But you cannot force me to watch that fucking show. I'm not doing it. But here's the thing. I get it. Everybody, I feel like fan fiction is becoming television now, and I don't like it
Yes, that
personally.
is well, it started with 50 Shades and then
Yes.
it's gone downhill from there, everyone. Yeah.
Yes. And I saw your videos and I had a cursory glance at them and I'm like, no, yeah, that's I feel like that's quite accurate actually.
People are really taking it seriously, and I'm like, I do take this seriously, but also y'all,
It's a show.
it's a show, and I do media analysis for my whole entire thing, and
Hmm.
I can take media analysis seriously, but you're really gonna tell me that Canada's not part of the American Empire? Are you gonna tell me that with a straight face, everyone? Really, really? Some of the takes have just been wild, and they're like, but they show Americans as homophobic, and I'm like, oh, okay.
That's not even okay.
But I'm happy this
Yeah.
discussion's happening. You know what? I'm not that mad actually. I'm
Yeah.
just annoyed with if you are, by the way, just as a general comment to out woke people, if you are a straight cis woman telling a gay man who has done mostly anti-imperial work his whole life that their take on a gay piece of media in the West is incorrect, and maybe don't just cursorily write me off. That's my
Clock
take.
it.
You can write me off. I could be wrong, but maybe chill out.
Clock
That's
it.
that's the message.
It's the straight women who are obsessed with yaoi for me. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, we've been
We
there.
all been there. And you know what? As a
Yeah.
kid who grew up on Wattpad, I get it. But
Yeah.
also, like, please, like,
Truly.
chill.
Truly.
It's I don't know. I'm not into the show personally, and I have seen I watch a girl on YouTube who watches the show, and then I watch her
Yes.
watch it, and I love her videos, and I just absorb a lot of that media through osmosis to her because I don't watch like Love Is Blind or anything like that. I don't watch that. It's not for me.
No, nor I. Nor I.
No, but I love Trixie and Katya watching it.
Queen Sue Watch is a fantastic show.
Yes,
Shout out.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I have to say I'm throwing my support in Will's corner here.
Thank you.
Um, and I understand that people have different opinions, but I'm sorry. Like, there's this whole under argument of like people making like assumptions that because a man is like violent towards women that he must be gay, and like
Yeah.
there's like a whole I feel like this kind of low key, I feel like this started with Euphoria days. And you remember when Euphoria came out for the first time and it was like Nate
Yeah.
Jacobs and Jacob Elordi and everything? You
Yeah.
know, this whole underlying assumption that like every man who was like sexually frustrated or has problems is just secretly gay. They're always
Yeah.
gay. Like,
It's like post woke. It's
yeah.
unfortunate what's happened where like people realize the terms of woke and then we're like, I'm gonna make this also bad and homophobic
Yeah.
and unfortunate. Oh my goodness. Very
Sorry.
good cat. No, fantastic. And like the usage of twink as a slur. It's great. It's really
Yeah,
fun. Life's going on. But what's funny is I've never been called a tanky for my takes on like media before. I've been called a tanky for like 99% of the other things I say.
right.
Um but being slurred as a tanky for being like, maybe this show about Russia is American propaganda. People are like, you Putin lover. And I'm like, I've talked about my issues with Russia before. Anyway, what an interesting little time.
Yeah, no, and you know, again, it's people being stupid on the internet. There was a girl last night when I was at work who was, I commented on a revolutionary thought post about like how people are
Love
like,
revolutionary
yes,
thought.
I love her, all the love.
You
And
shut
she
up.
was talking about how like a lot of people are in bad faith using nuance as a way to defend America and Israel and
Mm-hmm.
the Iran
Yes.
situation.
Yeah.
And I commented, I'm like, yeah, this is correct because like nuance is recognizing that we need to support the Iranian working class overall
Mm-hmm.
in this, you know, this is about sovereignty more than anything and the rights of
Yes.
people. And people who are trying to support the American and Israeli aggression are in bad using nuance in bad faith, point
Yeah, well,
blank.
they're the most media illiterate people I've ever met. I don't want to hear
Yeah,
nuance from people that can't like. I don't shush. Like
yeah,
you can't tell me anything about Iran. People don't know Mossadegh, and
hmm
they're telling me about nuance in Iran. Oh, I
yeah,
it's fascinating. It's
yeah.
fascinating what nuance they know. It's because like I'll out nuance you. Like once
Nuance.
again, my job is to out woke people. My job is to out nuance people. I
I will
know the
outwoke
history of
you.
Iran.
Yeah,
I know the
period.
history of this shit. Like it's very funny. It's very funny.
And that's the thing is I commented that and then this, I kid you not, real life, a real life transgroiper. I have met one in real life
Oh,
now,
this
Loki.
happens. Yeah, this happens. Yeah.
Yes, MAGA transgroiper, very strange
No, I know
experience.
this. Yeah.
And she commented and she was like, you communist, like was like, you should go live in a communist country if you love being a communist so much. And I just was just trying so hard to flame me. And I was like, this is
Yeah.
stupid. And I just responded comical LMAO. And then she started commenting on all of my posts and all of not any of the ones that have my show like advertised. It's all of my personal posts and she's like
Oh,
ugly
that's hilarious.
and I'm like okay. I just was like, wow, you're putting a lot of energy into this. The most creative
Truly.
she got was, when are you gonna dye your hair blue? And I was like, that's like a 2017 ass take.
Well, they are
Like,
there. It's like Turning Point moved to the UK and they're like going back in time to like the like just like rage baity kind of
yeah,
posts. That Turning Point USA now has like turned to just full fascist prop,
yeah,
like that stuff. But now they're going back to like roast the libs. I find it very, very funny. It's infantile.
it is.
But you know what? People make their bag. You gotta see it for what it is.
This girl had
Um,
400 followers. She was not making her bag for
that's the
anybody.
most
This was for
embarrassing.
her. That was for her. I was like, you know what? More power to you. So I just blocked her and moved on. But I was like, I don't know. I had to comment on that. And I texted some of my party comrades and I was like, guys, guess what? I have a bully.
Yeah,
Um, but
that's how you know you're winning.
this takes us nicely into a big bully currently in the world, the United States of America, using its
Yes.
other little bullies in the region, the Gulf states,
Yes.
against Iran. Um,
Yeah,
there's a lot to talk about with this one.
there is.
Yes,
It's wild.
it's wild. I did an episode on Iran, but to do a quick recap, basically in Iran, there's a long history in Iran, you know, originally Persia. And, you know,
Yeah.
It's been an Islamic country for centuries at this point. Back in the 50s, they had a democratically elected prime minister who was incredibly popular, and then he was ousted by the CIA and the British intelligence for trying to nationalize the oil. And they installed the Shah, who was a brutal dictator. And then while they were trying to keep down a lot of leftist movements, what ended up happening is there was a huge movement around Islam with the Iranian Revolution, and then which happened in 1979, which installed the Ayatollah and the RGC. And so now we have the current state, which I was getting flamed by some people personally for my takes on the Iranian state, and basically saying that do I support the state? Absolutely not. But if we they are the state as it exists right now is the only thing currently standing between the Iranian people and what happened in like Syria and Libya and Afghanistan and Iraq and all of these other countries that have been, brought to their knees by the American empire and are basically failed states now that are run by warlords and, a lot of intelligence. And the CIA is also very responsible for this. So once again, I don't support the Iranian state, but their imperial war, their imperial resistance is incredibly important. So, or their
Yeah.
anti-imperialist resistance.
I think people can have whatever narrative normative position they want on a particular government. I'll say from a propaganda side, from like a commentary side, as Westerners and as Americans, I think passing judgment on another country that is primarily in reaction to the American empire is either you look silly personally,
Mm,
or you are actively enabling violence against them. And
right.
so, I think any reasonable person can go do their own research, go is have whatever opinion they want. I always center it back to, what is that why are we
Mm,
communicating that opinion publicly, and why are
right.
those opinions being proliferated? And so I have my thoughts on what's happening in Iran, but my number one thought is to that point is whatever you think about Iran. Um, Whatever you come out and support, I don't think Americans supporting much matters that much other than the extent to which they stand in the way of the empire doing what they want, which is clearly a Libya part two.
Hmm.
They want to, and we can go into how specifically they want to split up Iran, but we're seeing these narratives. It's clearly in America's interest to balkanize Iran,
In
and
Israel,
that what?
in Israel as well.
Yeah.
Israel. Yeah,
Oh, it's in American Israel's. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I always position Israel as an extension of America.
No,
Maybe
that's
that's
a good
simplified,
point.
but
No, that's a good
yeah.
point. But the whole Greater Israel Project is like so incorporated with this. It's like
Yes.
very, very, I don't know. I feel like not enough people know about it because it's so within like if you're so deeply propagandized by the state of Israel, then you probably already support the Greater Israel Project.
Yeah.
But for people who are kind of just not plugged into the situation and maybe have like some anti-imperialist tendencies, they like unfortunately I don't think enough people pay attention to just how fucking evil the state of Israel can be as an extension of the United States specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. But as to the GCC, which I think is the
Yeah.
really important, interesting portion of this, because people don't, the GCC benefits from some amount of wokeism, right? Because they're Arab. And I think liberals are reticent to comment on the GCC. But what's necessary is that they are authoritarian monarchies. And
Mm-hmm.
they are the best counter to American lib washing propaganda about the
Yep.
Middle East. Because once again, you can think whatever you want about Iran, but if America cared about democracy in the Middle East, they would stop us supporting these authoritarian regimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like authoritarian is a CIA word, but I'm happy to use it when it is literal CIA monarchies that are being supported, and the UAE is that, Saudi is that. It's a monarchy. The Bahrain, Qatar, all monarchies, all extremely undemocratic.
Yeah, and all built on basically slavery. Um,
Yeah, yeah, we sound really like wild and out of there, but it is like the most
no,
quintessential
it's
built on
serious.
slavery and genocide immediately currently, right? Like the UAE is essential in the genocide going on in Sudan. Um
Sorry,
hello cat.
we just
No,
gotta
I'm a
deal
big
with
fan of
it.
the cat.
Yeah,
I'm a big supporter. The
photobombing.
cat knows ball. Actually, that cat is anti-imperial.
Yes, he
Um
is.
this cat stands against genocide in Sudan.
Yes, he does. Period. Period. No, that's important as well because I've been talking.
I feel like not enough people talk about Sudan, and it only came up because people started talking about Gaza, and
Yes.
then we were able to push through stuff about Sudan. And I'll be real, I didn't even know about the stuff that was going on in Sudan until a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. It's
Yeah.
so that is how deeply forcefully pushed down it is by
Yeah.
like our media. It should be we should be screaming from the rooftops about what was going and what is going on in Sudan right now.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's one of the most frustrating things ever and most
Yeah.
horrific.
And shortly, the difficult part with that was that a lot of people's first introduction to Sudan, ironically, was Zionists using it as a deflection. Like this is
Yeah.
my experience in the American media ecosystem, where the most people only heard Sudan as a whataboutism, right? Where we had to deal
Mm,
with this thing where it's like, well, actually, like, like, and then the leftist like take is like, actually, they're directly interconnected. The UAE is essential in the genocide of the Palestinians as well as the genocide in Sudan. And then we had to like bring in sufficient context. Zionists can just write it off because obviously they don't care. I mean, Israel's also essential in the genocide going on in Sudan. The RSF is not recognized as a terrorist organization by Israel or America, despite it, being quintessentially what it is. Once again, if we're going to use the CIA term.
hmm.
So it's a weird time where we had to be like, no, 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 you don't get to like distract from Gaza, but also, yeah, people should be paying attention to what's in Sudan
Yeah,
and should be tying it into their politic, really.
most certainly. And the fact is that the UAE gets away with so much. And like I actually talked about this. I talked about this in a few episodes back. I honestly think it was our New Year's episode that we did right before the turn of the year. And I was talking about the Riyadh concert and like how Saudi
Hmm.
Arabia has been laundering its image through things like American media and activities like comedy and like a whole comedy festival that was going on in Riyadh. And how like this is I think one of the things that pissed me off the most, where a lot of these comedians are like, actually, we're building bridges. We're starting free speech in Saudi Arabia. And I'm like, you're not a fucking policymaker. You're not like
No.
an activist. You went there, you got paid like thousands of dollars by a monarchy to go perform jokes for the monarchy. And you didn't even
Yeah.
challenge them. Like,
Yeah.
you know what?
What free speech? Speaking is not free speech, my friends. And it's like, no, that obviously they're disaligned. Obviously they're being paid. Literally, we know they were being paid.
Yeah,
Saudi is
literally.
also underhated. I think the UAE is a bit more niche. Qatar is
Yeah.
a bit more niche. Although recently, it's been interesting to see specifically because I mean, I don't want to give it to the libs, but there is a bit of a horseshoe effect on anti-imperialism between fascists and communists, where we're like, imperialism bad, and fascists are like, we should be doing imperialism here. And so they're kind of aware and can kind of signpost and dog whistle to actual anti-imperial critiques. That's the whole point
Mhm.
of fascism, some might say, is to co-opt anti-imperial work. Um, but they've been kind of labeling like Tucker Carlson like a Qatari plant or something, and I don't know if he's getting paid by the Qatari monarchy. Go off. But there is kind of this hate of Qatar only because they refuse to completely be in line with the American empire. They are still largely in line with the American empire. They're still largely producing it, but they do host, some like resistance bases. They like dare tolerate Iran existing. And so the dynamics in the GCC, I think, are kind of like peak contradictions of like American imperialism and then multipolar polarity like developing.
Exactly. And they kind of exist as a way for a lot of imperialist dirty work to get done.
Yeah.
I feel, so I'm an urban planning student graduating in May, thank God. And yeah, and we were talking about Dubai and the city of Dubai, and it is literally like the he's crying right now. Sorry. How Dubai is literally like if colonization was a city,
Yeah.
it is Dubai.
Yeah.
Um, and everything that it represents and that it does for people and like what it does for the rich specifically, it is the bourgeois class's city.
Yeah.
Like it exists like the most the some of the most enormous class contradictions exist in Dubai.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It
yeah.
I always describe it to Americans as Las Vegas. Because if you
Yes.
go back 150 years, that is what Las Vegas was, right? It was a city of decadence in the desert, but it was stolen native land, right? Nevada is stolen native land. It was part of the colonialism project and the decadence of colonialism, when in fact, I mean, it's built on extremely exploitative labor, and maintained like the entertainment industry in all of its stripes in Nevada are extremely exploitative in what they are. And so yeah, it's the contradictions going on. Like we can like the Marxian analysis and whatnot. But now we're seeing it in Dubai. America has had 200 years for it to kind of chill out. I think Israel's trying to reach that point as well, where they reach a point of stasis. Obviously, they're not with Greater Israel. It's
Mhm.
consistent exploitation and expansion. But specifically with the UAE, and the UAE is always like, why are you targeting us? Why do you hate us so much? It's because you won't shut up. You know, Bahrain has shut up. And what's happening in Bahrain right now with the population, seemingly, the reports are varied, and I've only seen limited of them. I don't know if you've seen what's coming out of Bahrain, the uprisings against the
I have
monarch.
not. Oh my gosh.
There are
Okay.
mixed reportings on this. I
Huh.
don't take me as a source, everyone.
No.
But basically, Bahrain's monarchy is weaker. It doesn't have the
Mhm.
same type of oil and gas money as the UAE or Qatar does, um, and it's wildly unpopular.
Oh
And so
yeah.
there is currently some civil unrest going on in Bahrain against that monarchy. And I frankly don't believe that America will step into like it does with all other uprisings, co-opt or quell.
I also, yeah, I absolutely agree because I mean they have bigger fish to fry at this point. That's probably the least of their worries right now. Um, and also, I mean, the imperial war machine has broken down in so many places.
Yeah.
It is so like I've been saying this recently because I feel like it's so true for what we're seeing right now from the American Empire. The fall of the Soviet Union was both the worst and the best thing that ever
Yeah.
happened for the US.
Yeah.
It both gave it free reign to do whatever it wanted. There was absolutely no power on the other side of the world that could stop it. And also, it got so stupid and so
Yeah.
sloppy and careless. And at least when the Soviet Union existed, there was a real resistance that existed that forced the American Empire to do like to follow certain rules-based norms.
Yeah.
That does not exist anymore. But there also is there's a double-edged sword. Iran is seeing that the United States is out for blood. Again, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. Need I say more? Four
Yeah.
concrete examples of fail states that have been directly become fail states because of the United States. We have absolutely no interest, and anybody that's still interested, that's still like, oh well, maybe we're, I mean, the theocracy is so bad, and it's like that's not the point. The point is that
Yeah.
look at what they have done. Slavery did not exist in the economy in Libya until what we did to them.
Yeah. No, well, truly, I think the point about the USSR is so interesting, and I think it's relevant for people to remember as a similar thing comes up in my view regarding multipolarity, because a certain man once said
Mm.
social democracy is objectively the left wing of fascism. And what the USSR required America to do was implement social democracy to quell socialist and communist sentiments in America. So they used
Correct.
extreme state violence and importantly, liberal social programs to quell the working class in America. And what the fall of the Soviet Union did was end the immediate active threat that America was responding to that required these programs. And as all happens, right? Capital with the falling rate of profit, capital seeks to expand its extraction, and it had infinite expansion, and that creates like a new dialectic,
Yeah.
a new issue for them, right? Which is they're going to expand such that they compete with each other and such that they are faced with a new enemy, and now they're seeing a new enemy, and they are deeply undisciplined. The solidarity of the elites has fallen. I think that is very obvious with how like close they are, and that might be what the Epstein files represents. That was a folly on the side of the American elite class to release.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so the solidarity there is broken. And they've reached too much power such that it has to go down. They really have nowhere else to go. There is nowhere else to expand. And to Iran, Iran is a good example of this, right? I take absolutely no one seriously when they're talking about democracy in Iran.
Yeah.
When I'm seeing people represented in the media, by the way, the Pahlavi, the crown prince the
Oh my
alleged
God.
crown prince Pahlavi. You know he went on. He went on PragerU. And I thank him for that. I thank him for that because that's
Oh,
beautiful because it doesn't show their hand any better. Nothing I could say could convince
that's
people that
that's
this is a
okay.
right-wing ethno-nationalist shill to go on PragerU. When these people go on Street Smarts, right, a Zionist propaganda site, and go, we were a democracy prior to 1979, and ignoring the like thousands of people put in like camps, be like by the monarch. Um, there's no reasonable conversation being had. And
No.
that's really nice. I actually quite like that they're not even pretending to have reasonable conversation. Because, imperialists like Obama would pretend to have reasonable conversations. Hillary might look at you funny. Kamala would tell you to say that, oh, you want Trump if you do this, right? They're all lying,
We
right?
all
But
fell
they're
out of a
better at
coconut
lying.
tree. Yeah.
We did fall out of a coconut
We
tree. Great memes. I will say the
great.
decadence of liberalism, top tier.
Oh my
Top tier.
God. We were eating good under the Biden administration with the memes. Now it's just
Well, they are a little funny. But the memes coming out of Trump are like just they go by way too quickly, I
they
think.
do. Well, it's all happening so fast, and the most recent meme within my three-person group chat has been him going, "The war will be over when I feel it in my bones." And my friend just goes, he probably listened to that Imagine Dragons song, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm radioactive. Like I'm gonna go radioactive."
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I like the Pete Hegseth spoken word.
Oh my
The
God.
the the brutal lethality, not tepid legality. Yes, girl.
Ah,
Yes. Wait,
a
snabs,
a
snabs.
no,
Yes.
are we no, are we doing slam poetry now? Is it slam poetry night? No,
Chat GPT slam poetry.
yes, and it's like Pete Hegseth also I find it when he's not, being a terrible, terrifying person and a drunk is hilarious objectively just because of like how the way he carries himself and he looks like a
Yeah.
TV show host
He
like
does.
that's in the Department of now War. It's so unserious, but
Allegedly,
it's
they haven't
so
officially named
serious.
it.
Yeah.
On the Department of War, I get these comments a few times. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to address the repeated comments I get because I
Okay, do
don't
it.
want to make a video about it. But on the Department of War thing, I'm stuck between my libbed and leftist side because it is the Department of War. That's what it is. That's the correct name. That's accurate. They're imperialists.
Yeah.
Calling it the Department of Defense was like neoliberal counter propaganda. Then again, my liberal side is like, actually, Congress hasn't approved that change of name, so actually, I don't want to dignify what Pete Hegseth says. Um, and so I'm kind of, I don't know. Am I woke or am I bespoke? I don't know. It's
It's
difficult.
such hard
It's difficult
decisions.
because I would, prior to Trump calling it the Department of War, I would call it the Department of War. I think there are videos for me in like 2019 calling it the Department of War.
Right.
But now I'm like, ah,
I can't do it now. It's not cool anymore that they're doing it.
cool.
Like,
No, precisely.
yeah, no, I don't know. I think the Department of War stuff is just ridiculous because I'm like, this is the lamest fucking fascist government we've ever seen. Like,
Yeah.
when they're not being terrifying and terrible, like, absolutely no swag, absolutely no drip, absolutely it's abysmal. And
It is.
and
It
it's
is.
like I think with the Gulf states, like a lot of these people who like these fascists who want to do imperialism on the Gulf states to stop the monarchies is just because they're mad that they don't have the drip that these monarchies have,
Yeah.
literally dripping in gold
Yeah.
and like opulence. And it's just ridiculous. But like if you look at Trump's taste, like the way he decorated the White House with all the
Yeah.
gold detailing and everything, it's tacky. It's so
Yeah.
incredibly tacky. It's
You know,
gross.
I'm so intrigued by that. I would love shout out open answer. My emails are open, everyone. I want to know if to a person like that grew up in Saudi, the Saudi monarchy is tacky. Like that's what I want to know that. I don't have like the cultural context like to really judge that. I'm not being like woke. I just literally don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's cool there. Um, And I want to know, like, because, like, from my perception, and maybe this is like Orientalism, but like, they look cool. Like, I don't know, some of the propaganda is working on me, guys. Like, I think these genocidal monarchs, they're doing fascism in a way the Nazis did, where they had like Hugo Boss and whatnot, and like these were drippy fascists, you know. And so
Yes.
I think I want to know. I want to know if that judgment is correct. I don't know. Because I can tell you from Americans, right? Losers ass like Nigel Farage. I was in the UK for a while, and Nigel Farage is a loser. He has no swag, right? The one
No.
correct thing he ever said was he went to the European Parliament and he said Belgium is not a country, and I agree with that. I'm going on the record, but Belgium was made up. I love really it's fantastic. A bunch of Belgians are going to be mad at me, and Belgians, I will take your opinion seriously when 70% of you don't support colonialism. Um,
Real. I mean,
yeah,
ain't
what are
left
you going to
no
say to me?
crumbs. I can't.
What are
I'm
you going to
not.
say to me? Um,
all of the
other
all
than
of
that,
the
Nigel
seven
Farage,
people that live
everything
in
he said has.
Belgium.
Oh, and one time he did a cameo where he said "up the raw," hoo ha, up the raw,
What does that
and
mean?
up the IRA, the Irish
Oh,
Republican Army.
oh, I was like,
That was pretty base.
what?
Yeah. Other than that, um, he has no drip.
No drip.
And neither do these fascists in America. I think Pete Hegseth, if I was gonna rank him, he does look like a talk show host. He might be the drippiest, but just because he has tattoos, but then his them being white supremacist tattoos kind of brings that down,
Also,
I
his
think.
hair looks like a Lego clip-on hair, so I points off for that.
It kind of yeah, it does
Yeah,
give like the boss in the Lego movie.
yeah. No, seriously,
Yeah.
that's what it. Yes, the Craggle.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's
Yep.
strong Craggle
It's
energy.
giving.
But I think he really wants to be cool. And by the way, I call him a drunk all the time as well. I presume, alcoholism is a mental illness, but I think it's kind of free reign with fascists. Yeah, so
I'm
I don't
sorry,
know.
he's in the
I have some red
government.
lines.
He's in
I
the
think it's a
government.
relevant point of analysis that he's probably drunk and that Elon Musk was probably on a series of other illicit substances.
Uppers and downers.
Yeah, so it's a relevant point of analysis and they should go get help.
No, literally. Okay, so you know those insider interviews with all of these like different like this is when I was undercover in like
Yeah.
the Nazi gang, blah blah blah, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm like, so I was listening to these, and this is relevant to the UAE, everyone, I promise. This is relevant. We will get there, I
Yeah.
promise. Drug trafficking.
Yeah.
Um, when they talk about they're like, yeah, like there's this dude who's like, we started a chapter of this like fascist motorcycle gang with like a bunch of
I've seen
police
this one.
informants. Yes, and
Yeah.
he's like, and yeah, we'd buy dope and everything. And I'm like, and like I'm listening to them talk, and I'm like, first of all, how much of that those how many of those drugs and everything, and how much of the drugs that they were selling was initially trafficked by the CIA? I just want to know. Um, and then second, why are you buying drugs? If you're a cop, you
Truly.
you should stop doing that because you're now part of the drug economy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like
It's
listening to
almost like
this.
they're criminals. It's almost like law enforcement is not doing that. It's almost like their job is to break the law. Whoa.
Exactly. And it's like, but a lot of like at one point, if you haven't listened to Blowback, please listen to Blowback. There's the Afghanistan season. They're talking about how I want to believe in the 70s or 80s, 90% of heroin production was done in Afghanistan when the
Yeah.
CIA was there.
Yeah.
And it's like if you don't think that that's not what's going to happen in Iran, I would love to know in the comments what people think is going to happen if our
Yeah.
colonial interests succeed. And it's, like, and a lot of that trafficking can be done through states in the UAE, and, literal human trafficking is done through them. All of the
Yeah.
dirty work that the empire wants to do can be done through the UAE. Like Jeffrey
Yeah.
Epstein, Saudi Arabia is not part of the UAE, but like Jeffrey Epstein had a Saudi passport. Like these people are connected and they recognize the UAE's incredible importance in their capital schemes and everything.
Yeah. No, true. Well, the UAE, especially, once again, this is something most people should know about the UAE is essential to understanding it, is one of its largest exports is gold. Despite no gold in the UAE. So, oh, where'd you get gold? It's because I believe it's one of the Emirates, I forget which one, has what is a gold free zone, right? And what people do, and this is what it's set up to do, is go in, melt down stolen, bad, dirty gold, recraft it into bars, and then it becomes Dubai gold, right? And it's
Mm.
impossible to trade. That's the nature of like gold, which is inherently valuable, is like if you can get it such that it is not blood, blood on it, it's worth a lot. And that is, allegedly what is consistently alleged by organizations like Amnesty and whatnot. How the RSF is being funded is what
Hmm.
they're doing is they're stealing gold from Sudan. And then the role that the UAE has not only is direct funding, which is also alleged in the genocide allegation, um, but is allowing them to come or facilitating their gold transfer out of Sudan, laundering it, right? Because, if you're in America, there are some limited limitations on like how you get gold, but they're not going to embargo the UAE and then laundering it through the UAE. So quite literally, this is an
Wow.
empire built on laundering of money, and that is essential to how the UAE works. That's a lot of what it does. We use laundering a lot with this, like laundering of image. So there's a bit of literal money laundering going on. And that's functionally what it is. But it's also we launder the image of the UAE, and it is allowing capital to freely flow, right? And that's its whole entire sale. With something like, I think it's something like 2% of the UAE's budget is oil. Like it's actually quite de minimis. It built off of oil money, but then it opened itself up for the playground of the oligarchs. And that's why, as we've been seeing, its propaganda is the essential thing that it must be is safe for the oligarchs. It must be the pick me state. And if that is shattered, its whole entire value proposition to the like Western and worldly like ruling class is gone.
Hmm. No, that's true. And I didn't actually know about the details with the RSF and how they were being funded through the, I had no idea about the gold stuff. I mean, that is so incredibly important to know. Because like, sorry, my cat's just saw a bird and now it's
Well,
back
that's
and
fan that's
forth
very
to
exciting.
the, yes, no, this is cat
It's
TV.
revolutionary joy.
Yes, it is revolutionary optimism. Prince Zuko,
Yeah.
he practices that every day.
Yeah. We will
But
find the avatar.
yes, but I think that like with the UAE and especially like the laundering like gold basically from Sudan. I honestly had no idea how the RSF was being funded because it's such an opaque situation.
Yeah.
And it's especially hard when like I just like I don't know. I feel like it's hard to find information that you can trust and know exactly where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And especially with how the Gulf states work, it can be incredibly hard to know what's real.
Yes.
Because again, they're so opaque. And for all my all my girlies who are interested in the British monarchy, I believe Sarah Ferguson is holed up in the UAE.
Is she?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard
Inshallah, the
last.
THAAD missiles run out. Yeah. Um, it's I also think why I talk about the GCC so much is because I'm seeing on the American left a shift towards explicit anti-Semitism.
Oh my God, yeah.
Where we're centralizing and exceptionalizing Israel. And Israel is an exceptional thing. It's just also not as exceptional as people think it is, right? Like the UAE is pretty damn similar to Israel. It's
Yeah.
different. It's not quite a settler colony in the same way. It's a trade colony. It's like a different type of thing. But we're failing to recognize the actual systemic function going on here in a deeply un-Marxian way. And talking about the GCC often allows me to take people that might fall down that rabbit hole that I find always reprehensible
Hmm.
into something much more productive, right? Which
Right.
is overarching anti-imperialism and understanding how the actual money of the world works, because it's actually really, really complicated with the gold. Like there, I believe there's also cobalt or lithium in Sudan. There's certainly cobalt and lithium in the Congo, which is also subject to a genocide being funded by the West. Specifically, how that one works. It's always interesting because like I kind of have to explain these things in slightly girly pop terms, but they are
Hmm.
absolutely reprehensible. But like for example, Rwanda is a large ally of the West. It always has been. That's why they got away with the Rwandan genocide so effectively to a large extent. And following the Rwandan genocide, they were deeply integrated into the American liberal system. And I don't know if you've heard of the Rwanda scheme in the UK.
I'm
Um,
not.
where they wanted to basically, instead of taking asylum seekers, as they're legally required to, force their asylum seekers to go to Rwanda to be processed and then stay in Rwanda or come to the UK if they earned it. That is reprehensible. It got
Oh my
blocked by the
gosh.
UK Supreme Court a few times could talk for a long time about the Rwanda scheme.
Yeah.
But the Rwanda scheme, they're funding a terrorist group in the Congo that is that is committing genocide. But the West is still trading with Rwanda. The West has not sanctioned Rwanda. The West has still very close relationships with Rwanda, and the West is giving weapons to Rwanda that Rwanda is passing off to this terrorist organization, once again, according to the genocide allegations levied against them. And so how this all works is really complicated, and it's really tempting to flatten it down to, is Israel is unique and whatnot analysis. And
Right.
talking about the GCC and their role in it is always very, very helpful in terms of opening people's minds and kind of scaring them a bit into really caring about all the diversity of issues.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I mean, it is important to put this in context and in perspective because I feel like I definitely think that Israel has been kind of made exceptional in this situation when in fact it is very much the same across the board with a lot of the states that the United States supports. As you said, Israel is just an extension of the United States. Israel
Yeah,
cannot exist without the United States. And I think that's incredibly true. I think that um, I think that the concept of like, like this whole thing that's like Zog, like Zionist occupied
yeah,
government, like I'm sorry, but like that is such a loaded term, in my opinion,
yeah,
and is again like the left still has to be careful about anti-Semitism because of how we know that Jews are treated in conspiracy and basically uses scapegoats constantly for things, and also the fact that like the right has taken very much to doing as much anti-Semitism as possible. Um,
yeah.
we have to be on guard as much as possible.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
we
well, that's
do.
that's the bit is like there's the most dangerous thing a critique can do is make you stop thinking.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people really desperately want to stop thinking, and I get that. Shit's tired, but there's always more to be said. And on anti-Semitism, it is true that like, Zionists use anti-Semitism, but the answer to that should not be to stop thinking about it. The answer to that should be, oh shit, well, what does that make them? How does that fit into this? Right. And I've always, the kind of messy, crude way to do that is to say Zionism is anti-Semitic, which I agree that it is. But there's a lot more to be said about that, which is that any dismissal by the left of anti-Semitism will allow people that are actively anti-Semitic. We see it in, America with Nick Fuentes. I don't think it's the overriding ideology of Nick Fuentes even, but it is present, and he will pull in this populist sentiment, and our job is to pull in as much of that populist sentiment into the left, or at least like what I view a lot of the work I do is pulling a lot of that populist sentiment into the left rather than allowing it to be co-opted into the right. And so yeah,
Yeah.
talking expanding people's worldview and also centering anti-imperialism, because once you center anti-imperialism, it's actually quite difficult to make Israel responsible for the genocide going on in Myanmar, right? Like you really I'm sure people could figure out how to do it, but it really is a lot more about individual regional facts as well as, multipolar relationships between America and China. And once you start doing that, it's really hard to come away with that conclusion. Whereas if your first introduction to anti-imperialism is Israel, and then you get into Iraq and Syria, it's like, yeah, I mean, Israel was pretty central in that, guys. Like, yeah, that's fair enough. And Israel's pretty central in this current conflict that we're seeing. And I also am reticent to call it a conflict, by the way. I always find this odd because, like, Iran is fighting back and they have a right to. But this is like an attempted coup, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not like Iran waged war against America. They haven't hit the American homeland in ever. They've never hit the American homeland. Iran hasn't, and it's not like they waged war against us. They're doing retaliatory strikes against our proxies. And so
And
it's always
that's
strange.
and that's my other thing as well is don't take American bases and American troops and American weaponry and keep it in your country if you don't want to be attacked by America's enemies when America initially will always when it
Yeah.
inevitably attacks those enemies.
Hmm.
Like don't like these Gulf states are like why are we getting all of this all of these missiles? What's
Yeah.
happening? And it's like okay, you also house American troops.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to just like exist in this like nice little bubble where you get
Yeah.
all of the privileges of being a proxy of empire and then
Yeah.
don't get punished for that or retaliated against
Yeah.
when that empire inevitably goes and does empire things.
Yeah.
What did y'all expect? Like, and this is not against the people of Kuwait or Qatar or any of these other UAE countries. This is not at all the fault of the working class, or I should say, those who are enslaved by the
Yeah. It
oligarchs.
really is the slave class of
This
those
is
areas. Yeah.
it's it is very much the oligarchs who are like, oh, hello, how could this be happening? And
Yeah.
it's like, you took the American bases to begin with.
Yeah.
You don't get to just have that privilege and then not get attacked when America inevitably does what it does.
Yeah.
That's part
Yeah.
of being a proxy, buddy.
The way I've always found this best communicated was like if you really internalize that America's a terror state and terrorism, just apply all the rules that America has told you to apply to terrorists to US troops, and it all is really clear, right? It's like, well, they justified killing everyone around anyone who was ever allegedly Hamas on the basis of them allegedly being terrorists,
Yeah.
right? Now say the exact same thing about the whole entire family of every single person that's in the Department of Defense, and you don't understand it. Oh, okay, maybe we should change those rules, right? Oh, like, okay, now you're personally affected. Okay, maybe we can have this discussion, but at least you understand it. And I mean, once you internalize that and win that battle, I think most people get it. They're upset and annoyed, and whatever, they can be upset and annoyed. But
Literally.
I think it's really obvious, and I think, yeah. Also on that point of, I get a lot of comments. I've heard a lot from people in the UAE, largely supportive, by the way. I always find that interesting, kind of like when I hear from Israelis, but I hear from a lot of people in Israel or the UAE, and some are offended. They're like, "Don't you understand that some of us are working really, really hard, or some of us are from the global
Yeah.
south, and do, 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 do." And it's like, my critique never really is, we can critique individual complicity in systems, but I have no interest in indicting really anyone. Even
Mhm.
if they are, I haven't talked about MBS. I think MBS is part of a larger system. MBS is a shitty person. I would like to indict him. But as a whole, right, the critique is levied about their position, right? And we all have a position in this empire, and we all have an obligation to undermine it. And in those positions, we have different abilities and contexts to undermine it. Like, I'm an American. I'll never say, oh, everyone in the UAE is so much worse than Americans. I mean, we're doing just as much genocide. We're built on
Yeah.
arguably more genocidal land, right? This was never our land. At least it was the Emiratis' land.
Yeah.
So it's questionable. And once we get past that, I think most people understand. Yeah, this has a role in the genocide we're seeing, and the UAE is once again a perfect example of this, because anyone defending it, I will just point them to the indictment by the Sudan of genocide and be like, "Is this your perfect safe haven? Really? It's reliant on genocide in Sudan. That's your perfect safe haven? Okay, I don't really want to hear it. It's not opportunity for the people that were slaughtered by the RSF. It's not opportunity." For the people slaughtered by the American military bases that are going in and trying to, kill innocent people in Iran. I also want to note through the Strait of Hormuz. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of Western media coverage about the Strait of Hormuz, um, as if oil tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz are innocent victims. No, 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 no. It, if you are, I just want to know, if you are a American who has gone, well, immigrants shouldn't be coming into this country. Well, actually, why are they? And then you're like, well, why did Iran bomb an illegal oil tanker that's bringing oil to its enemies and invading its territorial water? Two things can be true at once, but not those two things, And it's
What could be happening right now?
like
Oh
Pikachu face. Yeah, it's
no. Soy
like
face.
Pikachu surprise face, truly. Because, what are you talking about? Like, that oil tanker is invading Iran. That is Iran's territorial water. That is equivalent to driving into Iran with enemy, like, weapons for the enemy. That is what oil is going to the West. And it's like, well, yeah, you got shot down. Do I feel bad for you as a human? Yeah, I wouldn't want to be shot down even if I was breaking the law, right? Great, but how is this not the fault of America who greenlit it?
Yeah.
It's very funny.
No, that's right there is like I saw this little political cartoon online earlier today, and I feel like it's kind of relevant, where it's like this whole concept of like how Americans will watch the television and see what's happening and be like, oh, my oil prices,
Yeah,
my gas prices are gonna go up. And it's like people are literally dying, Kim. Like
yeah,
what you're sitting here telling me that this is you're sitting here telling me that the one thing that you care about right now is that your gas prices are going up when people's homes are literally being blown up and what? Like, sure,
Yeah.
like that sucks for those of us who, are living on minimum wage, paycheck to paycheck. It sucks. I
Yeah.
totally understand, but I'm not going to center myself in this situation. I'm not the
Yeah.
one being bombed. Like, big
No, truly. Yeah,
priorities.
well, the interesting thing is I've always found that the tact I've always taken is aligning their interests with the Iranian working class interests because that really is true. Like, I really can, in good faith, say that the American working class interests in the current moment are aligned with the Iranian working class interests, which is the exact same people that are killing Iranians are killing American citizens and killing
Period.
like people like new Americans who don't have the right documentation. They are murdering like people on the street, same people, same tactics, same training. And
Period.
so, and this is the dangerous thing. I think a lot of people don't understand about like social democracy and why I care so much about talking about social democracy is because the goal of domestic social democracy is to disalign the working class of Iran, the working class of Syria, of Libya, with the working class of America, right? And so, if Zohran Mamdani was president, right, and he was like, "Well, I'll take all the money we make from the Iran war and I'll give it to the American people," yeah, then the working class of America would not be aligned with Iran. Then I would really have to tell them, "Oh yeah, you don't care about this. That's stupid. That's privileged. That's bad." Right. But right now, we have incompetent leaders that are disaligning the working class. And it's an excellent moment to point out look, hey, you should not be angry at Iranians for defending themselves, right? You should not be angry at Iranians for not just handing over their oil so you get cheaper oil. You should be
Period.
angry at the second largest oil distributor in the world, the United States of America, invading a bunch of sovereign nations to increase the oil prices, or America for not giving you social democracy. So go out, fight, change the system because you have a lot more in common with them than you do with, the empire that's trying to use their reaction to justify further invasion. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I think that's a really great way to reframe it around working class interests, especially because, as Marxists, we need to maintain our materialist perspective and understanding, what are the conditions, and realizing that, we are ultimately supporting working class movements, and framing it around the concept of, um, you have so much more in common with the average working class Iranian than you will ever have with Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump or any of the American oligarchs. That I think can really break through to a lot of people in realizing that, like, actually, like, I shouldn't support something like this because,
Yeah.
I mean, whose side am I on?
Yeah.
Am I on like here's the thing: the bourgeois class will always have international solidarity.
Yeah.
They don't see borders, and they realize that it is more within their interests to maintain each other than it is
Yeah.
to ever allow a working class revolution to happen in one of their own
Yeah.
territories. So always remember that, like, the bourgeois class of your country will never prioritize you. They will always prioritize the bourgeois class of the international bourgeois class. And that's how they operate. That's how they maintain themselves. This is class solidarity.
No, that's exactly correct. And we're seeing that, right? Of this is why I absolutely love oh my gosh. I absolutely love the GCC countries for this, and this is why I do a lot of propaganda. It's really good content, right? Because what's happening right now is all of them are coming together, right? I talk a lot. Give me a second. I need to turn this. My friend is
You're good.
texting me, and I'm
You're
getting like audio stims.
good.
Um, what
That's
is
so
he?
real. You also do the Lenin. You do the Lenin thing where you're like,
It's a lawyer thing. It's a lawyer thing. It's a like point A, point B, point C.
and no, it's just
Um,
if you watch his speeches, he'll be going, like, just, I see you. I'm like, oh my God, it's Lenin. Hi, Lenin.
fair enough. Welcome back, Lennon.
Fair enough.
Um,
Welcome back. Welcome.
I do. Bernie does it as well, unfortunately. Where he's like, and the international working class.
And the proletariat
and
of the internet.
the wealthiest 1% of the 1%. Yeah, he's really good.
Yes, no, Lily Aglove posted about him recently, and I reposted her, and I was like, if you are still a Bernie supporter, this is your cue to stop. Because it's just him
Truly.
being like,
I hadn't seen that clip,
me
by the way.
neither.
It's so good because it's so beautiful. Honestly, like I've been so like content filled. Like now I see like really good propaganda, and I'm like, thank God, because I see really
Yes,
shitty propaganda every single day.
same.
Um,
It's unfortunate.
like it's so good because a social democrat coming out and saying that equality and democracy in Palestine is the death of the state of Israel. Chef's kiss. Chef's
Thank
kiss.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
because you're right because that would be the death of Israel. That's what we mean by an end of the Zionist entity. Equality and equal rights. You are such thank you. Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you,
Um
Bernie. And this
thank
is and I'm gonna take this opportunity to shit on Hassan one more time. Let For the people in the back, I have been saying this since day one of this podcast because I used to be a Hassan head. I
yeah.
used to be. Um, he is not a serious leftist journalist. If he is not willing, and he is not willing, to hold Bernie to account to those positions, and he has not. I have been watching this man for over 3 years. He has not, and he
Yeah.
will not, because he makes way too much money doing what he does. Accept that. Accept that. Accept that reality. I'm sorry. It sucks that your favorite streamer has flaws. I'm
Yeah.
I I also feel a little hypocritical because I do post this podcast in the Orc City Discord.
Look, I do Hasanabi apologia. We all know we're all left to the left of Hassan. I agree.
Yes.
Um I've posted Hasanabi apologia basically when Free Press comes after him. And
Oh
I'm like, I
yeah.
hate Barry
Oh
Weiss.
my. We'll all
Um
unite against Barry Weiss, but the thing is
yeah.
that
No, but Hasanabi is a social democrat.
and
He's
I
like
have
he's doing social democratic things.
and he tries to use Marxist communist rhetoric and it pisses me off because I'm like, okay, you love to punch left. He loves to punch left at his tankies and at the tankies in
Mm.
his chat. He loves to hate on
Oh,
the
I don't watch him on that.
communists.
Yeah.
I do know this because this is where I get my news because I'm a news junkie and I'm not watching CNN. You'll never be able to get me to watch CNN.
Awesome.
Like I, I have seen him in action, hours and hours and hours of clips. I know this person enough to see him on the
Yeah.
screen and see how he treats people who are to the left of him. He hates people to the left of him because they hold him accountable and he doesn't like that. And he's constantly getting pissed off at people for it. And you can see it in the way that he treats, the utter amount of disgust in his voice when he's talking to people who are pushing back against him, and especially his China glazing. I'm sorry, but I cannot stand it. I can't. And it's the fact that, he will try to use Marxist language and he will try to co-opt parts of our movement and use dialectical materialism when he never actually does dialectical analysis. And I'm over it. And I need more people to realize that, yes, Hassan is an entry point, but if he's where you're stopping, you need to get started again because that is
Yeah.
not acceptable. If you're going to be an organizer, if you're going to be a staunch Marxist-Leninist, then you need to move beyond Hassan and you need to read theory. It's essential. It is essential. And I'm
Yeah.
tired of people using him as an excuse.
Yeah, I can't speak on him punching left. I don't watch him that much at all. I have no clue. I agree he's a starting point. I agree we need starting points. But yeah, I think very openly the fact that he's been in the same position for the past, 10 years, whatever, it speaks to that. I've moved to the left in the past 3 years. I think anyone
Yes.
watching my stuff can observe this. I've gotten comments being like, "You've moved to the left for the past 3 years," and that's my aim. I aim to infinitely move to the left. Until I'm hated by the establishment, which I will be. I'm currently mildly beloved by some of the establishment. I have some of the establishment people that really like me, and I'm
The
waiting for
rad
them to get
libs.
yeah the rad libs. I'm slowly solidifying my base.
Well, you have a very
But
sweet demeanor, and you're very nice. So I can see why people like a lot of the rad libs are like, oh, but it's just a little blonde guy who talks. He's just
That's so funny because like I grew up on debate talk, where I
okay.
did not have a sweet demeanor. I mean, I
Really,
guess I was nicer than most people. I could say maybe I was nicer than most people. Like I'm a lot more charitable than most people because I'm
right?
genuinely very, very, very interested in having an interesting conversation, much more than I
Yeah,
am
a
like
good
I'm
faith.
interested in winning.
Yeah.
But good faith, strong word. But I. I'm just
Love
what is good faith with a person that has no clue what they're talking about and has
No,
no real
that's
argument?
that's
You know,
real. You're
good
right.
faith is a liberal bourgeois nonsense. But I think it's very funny to be described as having a nice demeanor because I think I do a good performance and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But so I try and maintain some of my liberal base, but I do think this discussion about by on that the discussion about entry points for the
Yeah.
leftist movement and how to deal with entry points for the leftist movement is hard, yo.
Hmm.
Like it's hard because liberals will come in the second they hear, oh, I don't have to love China. Oh, I don't have to love Iran. Cool, 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 cool. I'm
And
gonna do
then
blah blah
not
blah blah blah
understand any of it.
and then not understand the concept of like mass support or how we do mass support or how we open up to the masses. It's interesting, but that tends to become a leftist circle jerk in my experience where
Yes. Yes.
yeah, although every
No,
like
you're
radical
right.
organizer I know that's met like has really reasonable opinions on it or like de-escalates where they have to, and that like where it's like okay, like we're
Yeah.
all on okay. um but yeah,
Right.
I think Americans, frankly, my overarching take on it is that I think Americans are a bit lost. I don't think we're going to get most Americans to be leftist. That's my like overarching take. Just as I don't think we're going to get most Israelis to be leftists. I think we can have some very effective base, but whatever. Maybe my life mission is fruitless, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I think that I believe that the proletarian class is the really revolutionary class, and I think that it's going to take it. The fact is that we need to harness every mass movement where we can.
Yeah,
That is really revolutionary, and my party has done a lot of work on this. If people are interested in knowing our position on this, but and by our I mean mine,
yeah,
in the party. But I think that the American working class, it has very incredibly reactionary points, and
hmm
I absolutely think that there are just people who are so lost in reaction that you're not going to get everybody. But I don't think you have to get everybody is the thing, and
yeah.
and
I
I
agree.
I believe that the American working class can absolutely be a force to be reckoned with, in a communist sense and like an actual real revolution. But it's going to take work. I mean, the Bolsheviks were working for over 20 years
Yeah,
to organize for the revolution, and they were so successful. But again, 20 years of organizing in an incredibly reactionary state where anti-Semitism was one of the most like a prominent
yeah,
like regressive ideologies that existed. I mean, there was so many problems, but they did it, and it's because they put their nose to the grindstone and they created the Leninist form of a vanguard party to actually organize people.
yeah.
And it's the fact that we're not going to get this done in 5 years. This isn't going to be like
hmm
a 2 year project where we all meet once a week and we're like, okay, how are we going to organize the vanguard? This is hard work, and we might not see the end results until we're in our 40s and 50s. This is we're in this for the long haul. But I do genuinely believe that the American working class can be really revolutionary. But it's the fact that we have to put our souls into this. It cannot be we have don't half-ass two things, whole ass one thing, as Marx once
I,
said.
I'm in agreement on revolutionary labor and the necessity of it. I think I should be more clear. I think the American working class prior to being revolutionary will outlive the American empire.
Yes.
That's my view on it. I don't think within the next 5 years that America is still the prominent empire. And frankly, pre-Balkanization, we will effectively be able to undermine the oligarchs in that way. I think the primary form of American revolution will be through Balkanization, whatnot, which is
Right.
overarching model. We'll guess, we'll see. Like I think liberation. I don't really want to see like a unified, quote unquote, like American working class, much more than like an effective popular front for liberation for the Hawaiians and for the Puerto Ricans and for the occupied Mexicans in California and the occupied Alaskans and Inuits and whatnot. Which, by the way, I don't know if this is proper term. I should probably check.
Hmm.
But and so on. And that's typically what I talk about. And a lot of the work I do is trying to undermine number one, the unified American identity, like because it's like a unified Israeli identity. It's fabricated, it's false, it's nonsensical. But also undermining the alignment that the people that do live in this territory have with the American elites, right, and their aims for in foreign policy and whatnot. And so that's what we're seeing right now is a complete disalignment of that. Trump has something like a 30% approval rate, like an embarrassingly bad approval rate. Obama had a majority approval rate, like
Yeah.
two imperialists, one much more popular than the other. It's looking good for us. That I do have optimism for.
Yeah, no, and I think breaking down the American identity into broader, like I would say, international proletarian identity and understanding that like we all come from different places and have different cultural identities. And there's, I mean, like the theory of nations, Stalin writes about the theory of nations, which
Yeah.
is really, really important, I feel. But the realization that like I think the Soviet Union actually did it super well, where they recognize that like you can't like cultural heritage and coming from like a background of like I don't know what's the word. I can't remember the word. Okay. But essentially recognizing people's cultural context rather than trying to just push one like large identity on everybody. The former is the most effective way of having actual like working class solidarity across all lines. Because it's
Yeah.
like I like to use this example a lot, but Stalin during the Spanish Civil War was part like there was like the Soviet Union helped evacuate like 300 to 400 um, communist like a lot of Communist Party members from Spain, their children to the
Yeah.
USSR. And these children were called Stalin's niños, and what they did is they literally went through a lot of the Soviet like the people who brought them over literally went through all like Spanish history and Spanish like culture to find elements that were like to help maintain their Spanish heritage, to keep because they wanted these kids to recognize like you're Spanish, like you
Yeah.
have like this is where you came from, and like find parts of the culture and everything that were obviously like working class, like about working
Yeah.
class solidarity, blah 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 blah, but like recognizing that that is an incredibly important part of identity
Yeah.
can go hand in hand with working class solidarity. And I think it's one of the incredibly important aspects of building a truly revolutionary movement.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
I entirely agree. I think I very much agree. I think the centrality of post-colonialism in like my analysis, it makes it very difficult to speak of a cogent American working class, because it's so antagonistic to the working
yeah,
class historically of all these countries I talk about, and so I think there is a theory of change, of what happens to the people in this territory, and I agree.
absolutely.
There's incredibly good and important work that needs to be done on that. It's very rarely my focus, and I think
Right.
that's a difference in taste, and a difference in aim, because
Yeah.
my focus is often on the working class, like de-escalating the power of this empire currently, and the working class globally that are largely victims rather than complicit members
Right.
of it, and the relationship there. And it's like right now is like a masterclass in that, like how this is working, how I'm seeing the propaganda gears turn is incredible, because the solidarity that these burgeoning fascist movements are having across the globe is incredible, right? And there is the solidarity that the global left is having is not, frankly.
Hmm.
Like there is not this cohesive solidarity. There is development, right? And I'm really happy to see this development. I'm really happy to see different things come out. We could kind of map the leftist landscape forever, but mapping the fascist landscape, it's very unified, from the Hindutva organizations in India to the Zionists in Israel, to the monarchists in Iran, to the monarchists in the UAE, and monarchists in Qatar, and
Yeah,
etc.
all
All the
of the
monarchists.
monarchies.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
it's other than pointed out, the cause of action is interesting, but I do think the biggest weapon they have is like it's fucking complicated, right?
Yeah.
Like even people that are super tapped in, like describing what's happening in the Congo, describing what's happening in Sudan is fundamentally very difficult, and the right wing is capitalizing on that. I recently saw a video, and it's going to be released soon, of this person talking about how much better Zimbabwe has become after Rhodesia um ended. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Rhodesia, really? Is that the example you want to use? But the fact is, most Americans don't know the history of Rhodesia,
Yep.
right? They don't know the history of this extensive racialized colonialism that happened there, and the mass ethnic cleansing. And so
Yeah.
that type of teaching makes it like literally impossible to defend publicly.
Yeah, no, and it's I think, one of the reasons why Americans remain so incredibly ignorant, and this is not an excuse, by the way. It is not an excuse that, oh, I was raised in empire, so I'm just ignorant. Okay, well, you can do better. I was literally raised by a military family. I was raised in the American military, in the American military. I was raised on American military bases. And I could still find my way to Marxism-Leninism. It's not impossible. You can make it out. It's a matter of challenging yourself and challenging your own worldview and recognizing where you might have bias,
Yeah.
and the American working class, and it's not even just bias, but incredible amounts of, um, I would say, desensitization towards imperial violence. The American working class, we're so willing to look at something our government does and say, like, oh, well, or like I was talking about earlier, where it's like, oh, my gas prices are going to go up,
Yeah.
just completely desensitize ourselves. And that's also because I think that when you think about like global conflicts that have happened, how many of those global conflicts have happened on American soil? How many of those
Hmm.
global conflicts have been deeply felt, like physically, by the American population? Zero.
Yeah.
Big fat zero.
Yeah.
Like literally, I would say the closest we ever got is 9/11. The
Yeah.
closest we ever got. And that's why 9/11 was so impactful, because
Yes.
it was the first time, one of the first times, I mean, Pearl Harbor still, but like 9/11 was one of the first times that we had to actually feel what we do, just a taste of what
Yeah.
our government does to other people's societies.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing that, like, we as Americans we do owe the global South, and I'd say the global South exists in America as well. I've
Yeah.
done a lot of work on this as well academically. So if you're interested in learning about that, Chicago Mutual Aid story, plug it. But regardless, I think that it's incredibly important to realize that um, you know, our our position in global politics is so unique and is so privileged in so many ways
Yeah.
that, like, we are just incredibly ignorant to so many
Yeah.
experiences. And that's not me saying listen to all Iranians, listen to all
Yeah.
Cubans. That's not what I'm saying. It's about realizing that, like, Americans, our first priority right now should be toppling our empire.
Yeah.
Our first priority right now should be organizing against empire at home. Before
Yeah.
we have empire at home, we don't need to go out for empire. We have
Yeah.
it right here,
Yeah.
you know? And we should be focusing on using our collective power to topple that empire, to help support other global movements of
Yeah.
liberation against
Yeah.
the countries that we have supported.
Yeah. No, truly, the theory of change for like things outside of America, I think, are quite clear. And that's why it's so kind of such an easy dunk right now to be
Mm-hmm.
like these fucking monarchists. What are they talking about? Like
Yeah.
it's such an easy dunk because any American, we all have the memory of the Iraq War stuck in our head, I think,
Oh yeah.
or I think even most Americans, right, who are not very, historically literate, have this memory kind of blazed into our head of the Iraq War being a national failure and embarrassment. And I think the very, like a kind of like post feminist analysis of like the very like masculine, like stereotypical masculine response is like, I need to make up for this embarrassment. I need to go commit more violence, right? And
More
like
violence, please.
and that's like how you can characterize fascism is like it's this like extreme violent response, right, to a national embarrassment of we need to make ourselves great again, do more violence, like, and we're gonna do it again. And that's why it's like they don't actually have to win. It's the performance of violence that they're doing. Whereas the response a lot more people are having is like, oh no, this is gonna make my life so much worse. I don't care about like national embarrassment. I don't identify with that as well. And that's also I think what Trump's doing quite well of like killing this idea of like dignity and all these things in the US military that used to be
Yeah.
around of like you never disrespect a vet. You never, and he's like disrespecting vets all the time. Like all
Yeah.
of these faux pas he's committing are breaking the very taboos that he would use to protect his own imperialism. Right. And so most Americans look at Trump and like, you're telling me to care about these American military people that died, and then you're like dancing on their graves. It's like, I don't know. I can't really take your respectability politics seriously.
Exactly. And with the American military stuff, and once again, I always use my status as like having been a child of veterans and being raised in the American military. I don't give a single fuck how
Yeah.
much PTSD people who volunteer to join to fight the Iranian war in the next few years have when they
Yeah.
come home. If you choose to join the American military for any reason, because I have been thoroughly debunked on the whole poverty draft situation, and I will recant statements about that because I was wrong. I was wrong. You know,
Yeah.
like from my own personal experience, both of my parents did join because of poverty, but that is very specific cases of their situations. But at
Yeah.
large, the American military is mainly made up of petite bourgeois
Yeah.
people. Um, and I don't care. Like if you choose to join, because they're not going to do a draft. I mean, there would be mass uprisings before they
It
do a
wouldn't be
draft.
possible for them to do a draft, I
No,
don't think.
it's not feasible. There would be there if there's one thing that the American state understands, it is that if they do another draft, there will be a revolution, and it will not be a
Yeah.
good one. Like it,
Yeah.
like they will like, and I mean, you know, that was evident enough after Iraq, especially. But like, I mean,
Yeah.
not that there was a draft, but you know what I mean, where it's like people are not going to go for that.
Yeah.
There's not a cohesive enough feeling around the situation, especially I mean Vietnam I think is where we really started to see the cracks forming, where people stop feeling a cohesive feeling of patriotism, you
Yeah.
know. But I'm not going to feel bad for anybody that's like I have PTSD from killing children in Iran, and it's like tough shit. Maybe you shouldn't have
Yeah.
gone to Iran. You didn't have to
Yeah.
go. Like,
No, well, truly, I don't. Once again, I'm much less interested. Sorry, I'm looking up the Google Trends for fragging, which everyone should go do.
yeah.
Look up the Google Trends map for fragging.
What
Do
is
you know what fragging is?
no?
Okay. Fragging is a phenomenon that developed during the Vietnam War, where bombs seemingly went off that were seemed allegedly by American troops in the presence of other American troops. And how did that happen? Who knows?
Ooh,
And
how did that
so
happen?
how did these American troops that you forced to move away from your family with the promise of being able to like exploit the Vietnam's land and women? Who knows? Why would they be angry?
Ooh,
Once again, surprise peek with true face.
so excited.
And but the graph is like this. Like the graph
Yeah,
is like whoopah.
yeah.
Because
Pow.
the thing is you can only this is all kind of a delusion, right? Like you really can't force people to join the military to fight for you if they'll go because that's just killing yourself. Like
Yeah.
this is the thing is like you can't be like I'm gonna kill you unless you kill yourself. It's like I
Uh,
don't in the sense that
that's
like
when he. Yeah.
I don't know if that'll work, you know. It has to be combined with some sense of like, well, I guess I have to do this, and like it'll make my family proud, etc., etc. And it didn't even work in Vietnam, right? Like a
No.
huge portion of people went to and draft dodged. So no, there's no chance in us drafting. And once again, I especially because Americans are so reactive to it, I'm really ambivalent about personal responsibility, and I think we need to get like a lot less personal responsibility built in this country, where we're like, look, this is a larger system. Where I do think I take half critique of like. I think the military is a certainly a social mobility pipeline. Vast majority of people across America can be characterized in the global sense as petite bourgeoisie. I
Yeah.
think, especially if social democracy does its job right of redistributing the super profits of empire, right? Yeah, we would all be technically like we would all have a relationship to capital that is distinctive from those in the global south. Um, it's certainly that. And I think much more interesting than that is just observing that it's not a good deal anymore. You know, it's like if you get sent to Iran, you're not going to come back and be wealthy and have your needs met and have good health care like you maybe were promised during World War II. You're not going to be met with like a white picket fence and a good wife. You're going to be met with friends that hate you, a country that hates you, a society that hates you, a wife that hates you. We're all not going to serve you, and you will probably die, you know? And it's like all of these incentives that were built up over it for joining this terrorist organization are gone. And it's like you're a bad person for joining this terrorist organization, but you're also just a stupid person. Like this is just a bad idea, right? And I get it 7 years ago if you could go commit terrorism in Korea or whatever and then feed your family. I actually get that decision. I think it's despicable, but I understand it. Like
Hmm.
materially it makes sense. And so now, I once again, I think the conditions have changed, such that going to Iran, that's a suicide mission, and treating
Yeah.
it as anything other than suicide mission is enabling them to do it. It's like I see one person, a certain one of my friend's exes, joined the IDF, and they went and did like I know, fascinating times.
Whoa.
America's like a hellhole.
Scary.
Uh,
That's too close for
yeah,
comfort.
I was like, whoa, I thought I had bad picks. But uh, I basically I saw it and they were like kind of celebrating going off into training, and I was like, that won't be happening when Tel Aviv is being bombed, which it is being bombed, for which I have no sympathy. I don't publicly celebrate people like being killed online because I think like it's just against who I am. But I don't blame people for doing it in America. I'm like I don't know.
And that's the thing is I think that like like with the concept of social democracy and we all become petite bourgeois with the redistribution of wealth under social democracy, I definitely think that's true for like the Nordic states, especially where you see like
Yeah.
complete redistribution. I don't think that's as necessarily true for the United States because our welfare system is essentially hasn't essentially existed for a few
Yeah,
decades.
this is my point. I don't think
Yeah.
it exists. I don't think
Yeah.
it's true right now, right?
Yeah, no,
I
it's
think it
not.
might have been true under FDR, right?
Maybe,
Where
yeah.
we expanded social democracy to certain people. Although you're right in that in the Nordic states they even give it, this is their fatal flaw according to Americans. They even give it to brown people. Like, like brown people come into the Nordic states and have good education, like oh my God. But we
And
don't, right? Even under FDR, he had Japanese people in concentration camps.
And that's the thing is like I think there's a trend within the Maoist third worldist movement, which I understand but I don't agree with, where it's this concept of like, if you are like a white person, you cannot like categorically you cannot exist within the identity of a proletariat, which because of the way that colonization has like specifically gone after and victimized and enslaved people of color and then created, like racialization and all of these other things that have created. But I would disagree with that mainly because of the fact that we can see like the characteristics of proletarianization regardless of racial boundaries. And that racism is a tool that is used by capital to further divide working class solidarity. I mean, we can see this with like the Bacon Rebellion, when racism became like an actual tool used by the Americas and the colonizers, where it's like, poor white people and poor black people came together to actually rebel against
Yeah.
their oppressors. They the rich realized that if they wanted to maintain their power, they had to create further social rifts between the working class who did essentially come together. And
Yeah.
so, the concept of race, has been born out of these things. And so recognizing that, and I should say I have a lot of love for Maoists. Like out of all of the revisionisms, Maoism is I keep the most love for Maoists because I
Yeah.
understand. I have fundamental disagreements, but I think that a lot of their theory can be, it can be solid. I have some overlap.
Yeah.
But we have fundamental disagreements, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that they have really good points, especially like
Yeah.
Mao's third worldism. I can see where it comes from. I can understand it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that, and especially rounding it out with the UAE and the way that they treat their labor and everything specifically, a lot of these, and I actually learned about a lot of this through my sophomore year anthropology class in community college. Shout out
Shout
Arapahoe
out.
Community College. Once a Puma, always a Puma. And Professor Netwig's class, actually, we discussed, I should say, Dr. Netwig, he, discussed this, how labor is used in these other countries and the fact that like a lot of this like labor is legit slave labor
Yeah.
in like the actual slavery sense. Like when you think of slavery, it is slavery.
Yeah.
And not enough people realize that like I think a lot of Westerners, when they think of slavery, we rightfully think of chattel slavery with the way
Hmm.
that Black people were enslaved here in the States, but they don't really think about slavery in a broader sense as well as like literally owning a person and like
Yeah.
just like keeping them in your country and not paying them and forcing them to work. Where it's like, could they technically leave? Sure. Can they? No,
Yeah.
because they take their passports.
Yeah.
Like,
No, truly, the UAE is a slave state on a series of reasons. I also think, yeah, no, it's always strange to be a Marxist talking about slavery because, like, in a sense, we're all talking about economic coercion and we're all talking
yeah,
about the relationship we have to capital. And it's like, like, yeah, like the relationship we all have had to capital in the empire and outside of the empire and within capitalist imperialism is odd and strange and hard to simply define and contextualize. Um, but it is really bad in the UAE, right? These are
yes.
extremely exploited laborers. These are physically, legally, politically exploited laborers
In a way that does not exist
in, even ostensibly, you can't describe what's happening even in like the United States on a similar scale, barring
No.
what's happening in prisons, right? Like I would say what's happening in prisons
Yeah.
is
Oh,
somewhat comparable.
yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. So
Absolutely.
there are contexts here, and it's interesting because I think this is like a controversial thing. I think the labor conditions in the UAE are abhorrent and despicable. I also think they are the critiques that have some of the least teeth because I think the UAE is wealthy enough they could not have slave labor. I actually think, like, from my understanding of the UAE, they have enough money they could pay their laborers well enough. And
Yep.
I think within the next 10 years, given reform, I think they probably would. The critique of the UAE I think has the most teeth is that they are fucking sellouts to the empire. They
Yeah.
are what they have done, and by the way, even if we go back to their history of the true serial states, have always had a relationship to the empire, and their founding, right, unification day is always a relationship to Western empires during the true serial states times, with the British Empire allowing them to ship and dock ships to invade and attack Kuwait, or invade. Kuwait's a whole different story, but invade and attack the Ottoman Empire as a whole. And now with their relationship to the West and America, specifically antagonistic to Iran, or really anything else, right? They were essential in operate what is the one where we invaded Iraq? Operation Desert Storm and
Yeah.
Operation Desert Storm 2. They were essential in that. And that they do rely on, right? They could probably forego the slave labor and continue being profitable, but they really do rely on having this relationship with the West that allows fuckheads like Andrew Tate to go in and be like, it's safe and good here because I own real estate here. And
Yep.
really, that's easy and fragile to undermine. It's really easy to be like, actually, the choice that the vacation spot of choice for billionaires and petite bourgeoisie in England or Europe should not be the UAE. Maybe it's Qatar. Maybe it's Switzerland. Maybe it's Italy, right? And that it can shift in a season. And I think inshallah, that's what we're seeing is that
Inshallah.
shifting. Inshallah.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, no, and I think that's so true. And I think that the UAE hopefully, I also think that Kuwait's relationship to Iraq, especially with the first Gulf War, is so interesting with the way
Yes.
that girl drama. Okay, like I need to talk about this real fast. We're getting to the end of time, but I need to talk about this because I talked about this in my last episode as well about American dynamism. But have you seen the CIA dude John Kiriakou who
Yeah.
edits going? I know you have because
Yeah.
we're both chronically online and and he was talking about how he got recruited and he was, he started around the first Gulf War and he interestingly, because this guy loves to be like, I'm an up to the American government. I just want a better American government, blah blah blah. But he interestingly leaves out in his analysis on the UAE, not on the UAE, on the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, how America basically invited Iraq to invade Kuwait
Yes. We allowed it. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
we used it as an excuse to then go and then bomb them to this back to the Stone Age. And
Yeah.
people and he didn't bring that up. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about that and I'm like, a CIA analyst would know that. A
Anyone would
CIA
know that. If you
like,
speak consciously about this,
yeah,
not only do we know that, but we also know we invited Iraq to invade Iran in the Iran-Iraq conflict that like crippled Iran following the revolution,
listen to
right?
blowback.
Like it was essential to how we actually basically forced Iran to be militant, right? This is
Yep.
have you ever read the Jakarta Method, Vincent Bevins?
Yes, I have heard of it. I've not read it, but I want to read it.
10 out of 10 should read. Very, very good. Kind of like that is a good entry point. Like your libbed
Yes.
up dad that reads the Jakarta method, like will become he'll
He'll
go to the
become a
left. He'll be good.
Marxist-Leninist. Got it.
He actually so it is actually Marxist-Leninist propaganda. It's fantastic.
Period.
Um, but he makes the argument very compellingly that like basically you can once like overarchingly that you can think what you want about militant regimes in the world, but all the ones that weren't militant were killed. And then he literally just walks through all the fucking ones that were killed that aren't typically talked about, like Brazil and Indonesia. That's where it comes to the
Chile.
Jakarta method. Yeah, in Chile, he goes to Chile. Like it's a lot of Operation Condor and a lot of Indonesia,
Could have been
and
Cuba
it's
if they didn't have Fidel.
but precisely, right? All the ones
Yep.
that didn't arm and were militant were killed. And so it's like, well, the argument's over. If one side gets murdered,
And the
like
United States went out of its way to kill Che Guevara for that reason.
precisely. And so yeah, Kuwait is an interest we can have there are I don't even want to get into the history of actually what
No,
happened in
yeah.
Kuwait, but I will add, you can think what you want. I don't think, yeah, I think Kuwait's been through enough, frankly. I think they're still going through enough, frankly. But yes, America did invite Iraq to invade Kuwait and then use it as a pretext to undermine the federal democracy of Iraq for its invasion of the authoritarian monarchy of Kuwait. And that is all I will know.
Yes. And I think that's so incredibly important to recognize because it really shatters this concept of like, we are so justified in what we do.
Yeah.
Because I mean, anybody who is taking this conversation seriously cannot look away from the way American foreign policy has invited wars because that is the war economy. Literally,
Yeah.
Mad Max Fury Road, everyone. Like Mad Max Fury
Mhm.
Road is just like distilled empire and and control of resources. I love that movie. I
Yeah.
love Mad Max,
I
but
haven't seen it.
it's, oh my god, it's Furiosa serves. She serves. And I'm gonna name my kid Furiosa actually. But yeah, I'm not gonna name my kid Furiosa, only in my dreams. But like it's the fact is that we invited this, we wanted
Mhm.
this, and then we act like, oh well, the militant Saddam Hussein. And by the way, I'm not supporting Saddam Hussein,
You
but
don't. This is the thing. Online, I ain't gonna support shit. I've never said I love blank and blank government in the world, right? What I will
right.
say is there's a reason that government's there. There's a reason they did what they did, and if you're not interested in those reasons, you're not interested in a serious conversation about this. And I've yet to have a serious conversation online. It's
Yeah.
like,
And it's like, like of course, like a lot of people will be like, well, Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons on his people, and we gave them to him. So like, what do you want me?
and he got rid of them when we asked him to.
Yes, he did. It's in like what's important to recognize is that the American empire has been the catalyst for these wars. It is
Yeah,
not who we characterize as like what, like the Vietnamese or the Koreans or like we are the common denominator. And
yeah,
so it's just incredibly important to recognize that. But yeah, I think that this was such a wonderful conversation on the UAE and just the broader context of imperialism currently, because I feel like we have a lot to talk about with just
yeah.
everything that's going on, and it's so important to talk about these things as they are happening.
Yeah. No, truly. And shit's complicated. And we're
It
running
is.
up against, a multi-billion dollar propaganda machine on these issues. When when we get the Iranian monarchists and the Zionists and the American right all working together, that's a few $1 billion, especially in oil money, that's all pushing against this.
Yeah.
And luckily, it's being shattered very quickly and effectively by everyone feeling it in their pocketbooks, but also, seeing it online, seeing how absolutely horrendous and disgusting this is. And I am hopeful, ultimately, for the death of the empire because I think they're bad propagandists. I think they're losing,
Yeah.
and that I am hopeful for. I think everyone's seeing them lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's only there's all we can do is continue to push forward and continue to organize
Hmm.
and militantly organize and recognize that the time is now. It's not
Yeah,
tomorrow. The time is yesterday. And
yeah,
if anybody listening to this is trying to consider, how do I organize? There is probably at least a chapter of something, and if you live in a small town, join Red Youth Rising. That is my organization. That is an organization I'm part of the board of. And, you know, we can help get you set up. But, you know, Will, did you want to plug anything for your organizing or your socials?
I'll just say, like, I give out a general of like, I live in the middle of nowhere. I know there's like one club where I am. And so for anyone also living in the middle of nowhere, which is, by the way, the most of Americans, it's better to join something than nothing.
Yes.
Typically, barring the American Communist Party. Um, it-
Clock it! Clock it! Thank you. This is
Join, yeah, anything
haters.
other than the ACP.
Anything other. Thank
Yeah,
you.
or like, yeah, I'll end it there. I'll just say anything other than the ACP, go get organized. Tenants unions, debt unions, any organization around you, go meet people, go talk to them. That's the most radicalizing thing. And yeah, I'll say I release content. It's on WillzTalks. I have a Substack. I release on it occasionally. I post chronically on Instagram and TikTok, and RedNote now. Shout out RedNote. And yeah, let's fuck this shit up. That's all I have to say.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. And yeah, I'll be posting this in the next few weeks, so you'll be seeing it. And I'll doing all the sharing, so you can also share it and all the XYZ. So all the
Stunning.
things. Yes. But all right.